Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Coulton Woods, and you are listening to Learning from the Experts. And today I actually want to talk to you about how bad advice is the most costly thing you can pay for.
So here's the deal. I know how frustrating it is as an entrepreneur to waste countless hours sifting through wannabe experts who never actually helped me in the end. Then to learn years later that there was an expert who really could help me 100 times faster than learning it on my own. I have created this podcast to save you time and money while taking you on a journey with me as I learn from and interview real experts who can actually help you grow your business. My name is Coulton Woods, and you're listening to Learning from the Experts.
Speaking of bad advice, so I remember going through college, I actually majored in entrepreneurship. So at first I was majoring in business, or I was a business management major with an emphasis in marketing. Then I switched it to entrepreneurship later on. But as I switched it to entrepreneurship, I remember people would ask me like, oh, hey, well, what are you going into? I'm like, oh, well, I'm getting a business management degree. And they're like, okay, yeah, what are you emphasizing in? Well, I'm actually emphasizing in entrepreneurship. And I remember the look or the just the reaction that I would get from people being like, oh, you're going into entrepreneurship. Like, that's kind of weird and really scary at the same time. And people would actually look at me and be like, don't you know that like 90% of businesses fail? And it really bugged me for a while, because a lot of people would say this to me, and I'm like, holy cow, like maybe they're right. Like, what's going on? But then I created my own business at this point, and I was running my own thing. And it kind of got to me because they had no idea that I was actually running a business. And so after a while of thinking about it, I'm like, wait a second. Don't they realize that they are actually working for that business, that they just said that 90% of them fail? And I'm like, every job in the entire world is for a business, and that business has the same chances. I mean, obviously it changes after years of, how many years the business has been in existence. But yes, a lot of startups do fail, but I think that's because of a lot of changes and a lot of, pivoting here and there and totally changing things up. Like, I mean, I've seen a lot of people start up a business and like, oh, okay, well, no, that's not the direction I would take. I'm going to start something else. And it's not like they had like employees and it was huge and then it failed and then see you later. But so after a while, I'm like, man, those people, they don't understand. And so I would actually tell that to people. I mean, I would tell them, hey, I'm in entrepreneurship. And they'd be like, yeah, don't you know that like businesses fail all the time? And I would actually respond and be like, yeah, don't you know that you work for those businesses, or that you're going to work for a business? And I remember a lot of reactions I would get, like people like, oh my goodness, I've never thought of that. Like, I'm actually going to work for that business that could fail. Like, oh man. And for me, I'm like, wouldn't you rather be at the top knowing where the heck the business is going to go and be being paid a ton more? Or would you just rather work at the bottom and think that your job is safe? And then when the business goes under, or when they don't have enough to pay for everybody and they got to cut people down and start firing people and you get fired, like it's no different. Obviously, yes, there are a lot more risks. There's a lot more time. There's a lot more energy involved at being at the top, but there's a lot better compensation involved as well. And honestly, some of these jobs nowadays that I'm seeing, like, people are working their guts out for nothing, and like they're literally putting in 60, 70 hours a week for their corporate job, and they're making $60,000, $70,000 a year. And I'm like, man, does that really add up? I don't really see it. And I see so many people doing side hustles on their, even with doing 9-to-5s at the beginning, and then end up making way more than that on their side hustle. And it's interesting to me. Nowadays, there's so many opportunities out there. And that's another thing I hear people saying, like, oh, today, like nowadays it's really hard because it's like there's so much going on. Like, you can't really do much because there's just not a whole lot of opportunity because there's so many people already doing it, and like, it's just really hard nowadays. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is like the best time in the world to like be alive. Like, this is the best time in the world for opportunity. And I mean, look at it. It's so much easier nowadays to get big. I mean, people that you didn't know nobody knew about 2 years ago, everybody knows about. I even think about like Stephen Larson, like 2 years ago when he first started publishing, nobody knew who he was. Nobody knew anything about him. And now he's huge. But he's worked his face off, but he's also published a lot as well. And now he's huge. So there's just this, and I see in a lot of kind of like the older generation as well is change is too much. Like back then, to make changes, I feel like maybe it was different. It was a lot harder. It took longer. I don't know. But change is so much harder for some people. And there's still like a lot of people kind of tied up in that false belief that change is too hard. It takes too much time. You can't just start up a business and you have to have all this capital and you have to have investors and blah, blah, blah. That's not true at all. I didn't have any investors for my first business. I started from literally nothing. I think I put like $100 into it at first and quickly got my money back and then just kept rolling the money into it until it got bigger. I mean, that's a little bit of a slower way to do it, but yeah, like you can find a little bit of cash to get it started and going. And there's so many more options and tools out there, and they're not expensive. Like they're really not that much money to get going. So I just wanted to go over that a little bit. I know this is probably gonna be a little bit of a shorter episode today, but if you're listening to those around you that aren't doing what you want to do, they're not going to tell you the correct things to do. They're not going to give you the best advice because their advice will be don't do it, or that's too hard, or it's not possible, because they've never done it. They don't know. And so if you're listening to them, I mean, and this can be very close family members. I remember even my wife would be, was not very keen about me doing my own thing for a very long time, until the day happened when we couldn't make bills, in college. And all of a sudden I sold something or somebody asked for a repair and it brought in some cash, and then we could pay for bills and have some extra money to go do something with or pay for other things with. And it wasn't until then that she was like, hey, this is actually really cool. And this is like, you're making more on this than you are at your other job while going to school. Like, obviously going to school, you don't get paid much, or it's hard to find a good paying job. And that's why I started doing stuff on the side of my own. But those around you, those closest to you, can be giving you bad advice. They can be giving you advice that is totally against what you believe, or totally against where you want to go. Whereas there's an expert out there, or somebody else who has done it, who's already been through it, and they can tell you the good advice and help you get to where you want to be. It's not impossible nowadays to really honestly to do anything, to accomplish some huge things. I mean, even if you look at ClickFunnels, I was listening to Russell Brunson's podcast this morning, and he's like, hey, today's our 4-year anniversary. And I'm like, holy cow, they've only been in business for 4 years, and they're huge, way past $100 million in revenue for the year. Like it's crazy. So just there are, and if you listen to people who have done it, they can tell you the past. They can help give you the ideas or the advice that you need in order to get to where you want to be. So that's just kind of what I want to get across today. I don't let those people who are negative take over what you believe. It was definitely hard for me. It took a while, because I mean in school, and I'm hearing it from all of these people, all of these friends, and every time I'd say it, I could just see their face like, oh, I'm sorry, you're not gonna make it, And I'm like, dude, if if there weren't entrepreneurs, if there weren't people out there building these businesses and making, I mean, agencies are huge. Like that's a big thing now. They employ a lot of people. Agencies are awesome for that. If there weren't those entrepreneurs doing that, if there weren't people building the businesses, we wouldn't keep cycling the businesses through to become the bigger businesses that employ even more people. Like if we just stopped creating businesses now, we would probably end up losing a lot of businesses that are in now. Like over the years, we'd probably end up losing a lot of businesses, and then the unemployment rate would go up. So like, I mean, what do you guys want? You know, like, just that thing that drove me nuts while I was going to school, just hearing so many people just negative about that. Like, oh my goodness, you're not going to make it. And I'm like, yeah, well, neither you, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I wanted to say. But, obviously I'm not rude like that, but yeah, like think about it, guys. If you're going to go to work, you're working for a business. Now, if you're going to create your own business, you're going to kind of dictate and have the choices, and you can change the direction of your own business when you manage it. But when you're at the bottom of the pyramid there, you're not going to have the opportunity to change a whole lot. So yeah, that's just kind of the idea that I wanted to go over today. And I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. And please do not listen to the bad advice around you. Start listening to books, podcasts, whatever it may be. Find the people who have the right advice for you. Follow them, learn from them, and go from there. And yeah, that's what I have for you guys today.
Are you looking to jumpstart your business by learning or getting help from the real experts? Go to learningfromtheexperts.com to find pre-approved experts that I've handpicked for you. Please don't forget to let me know how I'm doing by subscribing, rating, and leaving feedback.